Welcome to Numbers Don't Lie, Marketing Insights for Accountants. I'm Brad Pinzer.
And I'm Janelle Sikora. Welcome. What are we talking about today, Brad?
Today we're going to talk about ads.
Ads.
And what does it take to run a successful ad campaign? Are you ready for ads? I mean, that's really the question, I think.
It's funny because we get asked this all the time about I think a lot of firms, because they're accountants and not marketers, they think that ads can be just that quick, easy, turn on the spigot and get a lot of leads. It doesn't work like that. We talk about that all the time. And, it can if you've got them dialed in, and it takes time. But I think this is a great topic. I think we ought to talk about if firms have never done ads, or if they've done them, wasted a ton of money, which is most of them that we talk to, right? They've done it, they've gotten burned, they wasted a ton of money. What, in your mind, should they have in place or have done before they even think about doing any paid advertising?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, it's just like any relationship, right? So if you're reaching out to strangers, you kind of gotta, start off with like the basics, like, hey, hi, how you doing? You can't go get married, right off the bat, right? So I think you really have to have a solid offer, and it doesn't mean it's like your end offer, like your signing the client up kind of offer, but more of like a get to know us kind of offer, and I think that's kind of like an introduction to your firm. And, just a way to get acquainted, just bring awareness to that you even exist in some instances, right? I think, and then again, obviously it always comes down to the messaging and what you're saying. But particularly though, really what you're asking them to do, right?
Yeah, it's all about the messaging. I know. We've been approached by firms who want to do ads, and oftentimes it's because they need leads, right? And the first thing that we'll do is take a look at their web presence and their content strategy and figure out, well, who are they? Like, how do they differentiate themselves? I think it all comes down to messaging at all times, which you and I know, and we're huge proponents of building a brand, building that personal brand even. And if, the first thing that they've got to do is get the message right, because why sink a ton of money into advertising if your message stinks and you look like every other accounting firm out there, or tax firm or bookkeeping firm or whatever? If you haven't differentiated yourself, and if you're going to put an ad out there and try and drive people to a landing page or a website that just looks like, nothing special, you're going to waste a lot of money and not get a lot of good results.
No, it's true. And also I think you really have to give it, you have to give it time to do its thing,
Yeah.
There's certainly the whole, the warm up, for the different platforms have their algorithm to learn, the best placements for your ad. And so that takes time. And then it takes time for us to learn, how things are working for you, and to optimize, and, your ad spend and your creative and all that kind of stuff. And there's quite a few pieces that go into it. It's the targeting and your message in your ad itself, and where that shows up, and how you're bidding on that kind of stuff. And then once they click on that ad, and then you take them to a landing page, on there, you also have to have good call to action. It has to be very, very clear and easy, so people understand what you're asking them to do. And of course, in the beginning, maybe you're just trying to collect, an email address or a phone number, so that you can continue that conversation. So there's a lot, and then also, you really want to. You got to give it a minimum of 3 months, 4 months, something like that, minimum. But really, you should be thinking about it in terms of, a whole year worth of, so what it's like every month, because there's seasonality, there's, tax season, there's all that kind of stuff that happens. There's summertime, there's different periods that are more active and so on. And so you want to have this consistency where you're out there and experiencing what those fluctuations are like and how that affects your budget and your impressions and all the things that, all the metrics. And, you really should have all your foundational pieces set, like your website and your messaging and all the other things that you need to have, all your packages and your services and your offers and things like that in place first. But then you really need to be able to commit to this as a long-term play, even though paid advertising is kind of a short-term thing relative to SEO. I think it's better to think about it in terms of, a 1-year period, like where you can know that you can invest that and see, because, it takes time for this to really, have an effect on the business. And what happens is, if you're not willing to take that like longer approach to it, most of the time, and the reason why companies get burned is because it's too short of a period of time. They don't give it enough time to really, have its effect. And then you're also not doing all the other pieces that really are important to make it work. So that's why.
Yeah. And when we say it takes time, a lot of times we get the question of, well, what do you mean by that? Why? The thing that's so important to understand is that how many variables are involved in advertising. Yes, you can have great copy, you can have great images on a landing page, but you have to test these things. And it is you can get it so far, but then you have to test what your audience responds to, and then you have to give it enough time to where you're not changing things constantly, but to where if and when you need to make a change, you do. But it just takes time to let these changes index and let them play out before you determine what you should change and when. That's why it takes months and months, because ultimately you do figure out what the sweet spot is and what the right audience is, what the right keywords are, what the right message is, what the right offer is. But there's no crystal ball at the very beginning. And I always tell people the first couple months, you can't expect a ton. You kind of have to look at that as a bonus. You're investing in figuring out what works the best. And a lot of times too, it's beyond us, right? Algorithms change and things like that. Then on top of that, you couple it with a business that is very seasonal, like accountants. And you have to make sure that your message is resonating with the right people at the right time of year. So it can be pretty complex. And the other reason that we've talked about this 1-year strategy that we recommend is because, perfect example, we had a client that really wanted to do Google ads. They did them. They got lots of leads from them. We had it dialed in very, very well, had it going for, 5 or 6 months. And then they decided they were getting slim on funds and they needed to dial back. And that's where they chose to dial back. And we told them, you can do that and you can pause these, whatever. But if you choose to start them up again, it's going to take more time to spin them back up and for all the algorithms to settle in correctly and all that stuff. And sure enough, they came back like 3 months later, and all of a sudden they're like, with this huge revenue target we have to hit like overnight almost. And, as a lifelong salesperson, I'm looking at the revenue target going, that's just not even realistic. Yeah. However, their best shot was going to be throwing a ton of money at ads and doing a lot of other things too. But they just unfortunately lost so much ground because they had to stop and start again. And you lose those months where nothing's happening. And then you lose the month or two when they start back up again to optimize them for whatever's going on that time of year with the updated algorithms, those types of things. So it is important that it's a long-term strategy.
Yeah, because it can't be something that you just dabble in and try it for a few months, try to get a couple clients, and that's it. Like
Waste
it's
money.
either I'm an all or nothing kind of person. Like to me, you're either in or you're out. And like when it comes to this stuff, you really have to say, hey, I'm gonna be an advertiser. I'm gonna advertise my accounting firm, and I'm in it for the long haul. I want to become a really good advertiser. And it takes time, and there's a learning to it. Every firm is different. You have different, there's only, you have finite funds, right? So it's not like you can advertise the entire world. You have to pick an area. Even though you can serve the entire country, you're going to have to pick, your local area pretty much.
Right.
Unless you, depending on the size of your firm. So, it's just, I think it's just a mentality going into it and understanding what you're getting into. And I think that's really the big reason why so many companies get burned and they just waste money. And it's not worth it to just do it for a few months. I'd rather tell you not to do it.
I agree. Yeah. I think a lot of it comes down to setting expectations. I think what happens is, especially for firms who've been burned, maybe there was some communication breakdown. So many things could have happened, but the most important thing I think is just to set expectations, just like an accountant would set expectations with someone they're doing taxes for. They're not going to say, I'm going to, oh, don't worry, I'll get you money back. I will for sure get you a refund. They're going to set expectations and discuss all the variables and hopefully convince them that there's tax planning that needs to be done in between. However, the same can be said for ads. You have to set expectations. You have to explain that, you're going to invest some money up front in, the first month or two that you're just not going to see a lot of return on. But there is a lot going on behind the scenes, making sure that you've got the right offer, the right ad. But I think if you set those expectations, people understand, right? It's a lot of times people will go into it thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to turn on these ads. And all of a sudden, hello, where are my leads? And it just doesn't always work that way. But the other thing I wanted to bring up too, because we've talked about this, is here's another thing. So when you run an ad, you have to have a really good offer. Well, a lot of times with accounting firms, that offer is that free complimentary consultation, which is important. But some things that we've seen that don't work that well are when you've got a form to fill out in order to get to, if I'm the prospect and I click on that ad and I see a form to fill out that before I can get to scheduling a meeting, you've got to be really careful about how much you're asking that person to do. We've got firms that say, well, we don't want to talk to anybody who's not this, or this. So we just want to filter them all out. Completely understand that. But when you're running an ad and investing in an ad, you've also got to reduce friction. People are exposed to so much noise and so many different ads that if one of your competitors makes it slightly easier for that good prospect to engage in a conversation with them, that's who they're going to pick if they're running ads also. And I think sometimes it's easy for a firm to get really carried away and say, okay, we got to answer these 30 questions first. And then if you get through all these and, you've been conditionally approved or whatever, then we'll have a conversation with you. I think you can do that with a call to action on your website. But on an ad, I think you've got to have a much lower friction point and just know that you're going to get some junky leads, right? Some that, they're not going to be a good fit. But when you're running an ad, you want to talk to as, many qualified people as you can. You don't want to risk that someone saw your form and said, oh, I don't have time to do that now. I'll come back to it. And then they find another ad. That happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's also why it's so important to niche down because, when you're creating these ads and you want to offer something to somebody, it needs to be compelling. And the only way to create something compelling is if you're, really deep diving into like a very specific problem in a very specific kind of business that only you really, know about or very few companies know about. And if it's just kind of generic, then you're just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And you're not really going to get, you're not going to get the clicks. You're not going to get people, filling out those forms and contacting you. So,
yeah, that's a good point, because if I'm a accounting firm, if I'm a CPA firm and my focus is physicians, as an example, or maybe I just focus on small business owners or entrepreneurs or whatever, but I really like working with physicians, but I just don't want to. I don't want to have my website be just for physicians. That's a great opportunity to run an ad that's just for one niche, because when a physician sees that ad, they're going to go, "Oh, okay, this is really interesting. This firm must understand the unique financial situations of physicians because they put this content out there." So an ad is a great opportunity to niche down and pull in new business from a niche you want to focus on without having to represent yourself as only focusing on that segment of the market.
right. And it could be, you have some type of, a PDF or some kind of information that really speaks to, a problem that you have a solution for. Right.
Yeah.
So your ad could just be getting that out in front of people and getting them to download it. And, you're not signing a client, you're not making money, you're not doing anything other than investing in the ad to build awareness and let people know about you. And it's then you need like a whole nurturing sequence, and you need to do all this other stuff. The ad is just the beginning. It's not like you put an ad out and you get clients. It doesn't really work like that. It can sometimes, but for the most part, there's way more work involved in getting a stranger to become a client. There's many, many, many steps involved. And I think that's really ultimately, if you're not understanding that concept, that's when you invested for a few months and then you quit.
Mm-hmm. You bring up a really good point, because we always talk about the best sales and marketing asset a firm can own is an email list. Well, how do you grow your email list? Well, you can do it the organic way by having some lead generators out on your website. And then as people download those, you're capturing their email address and you're marketing to them. But, that's kind of a slow trickle sometimes. But if you have an ad, the offer doesn't always have to be schedule a consultation. The offer could be, your goal for the ad might just be grow your email list. And then you've got a kick-ass nurture campaign that goes into the background. Those are very successful. And that would be, having an ad out there is a great way to grow your list. If you've got a great piece of content that people would love to have, but in order to get to that content, they have to put in their phone number and their email address. Always get their phone number too, because marketing to them appropriately and ethically through SMS is as effective as email. But if you have a piece of content out there and it's resonating and you've got a lot of people that download it, then you have all of these prospects that you can market to without worrying about anybody's algorithms changing. You don't have to wake up and go, oh, okay, well, shoot, Facebook changed something overnight, or whatever the case may be, or Google's algorithms changed. If you've got an email list and SMS list, you have a captive audience that you can strategically market to. So that's a great use for an ad.
Yeah, absolutely. And to take it a step further, I mean, so let's just say you have this PDF, you have a landing page, and somebody clicks through just to check it out. They're just like, oh, let me see what this is all about. They go to your page, but they don't take any action. They don't even download it. They don't, so it's not a wasted, it's not a wasted thing for you. So you now have an opportunity to retarget that person. So now they've expressed interest just by clicking through in, your whatever it is that you're offering there. And and again, the more niche down it is, the better, because now you can go ahead and retarget that person. Now you have to have a different kind of ad that this is to somebody that is not a complete stranger. Now they checked you out, they saw some stuff, and, they can now be, presented with an ad that has a little bit slight different message behind it. And, you can have another landing page for that type of user. And you have it's like the next step in that conversation, and you can just hit them up again and be like, listen, obviously there's something going on that you checked it out, what's up kind of thing, like what's going on with your business. And it's kind of like, this is a very nuanced type of thing. And that's what it takes. All these, subtle types of, tactics, right. That need to be implemented. And all of that takes time. But if you build all of that stuff out and you really understand what it is, that you're offering, and you can communicate that's what it takes to be effective with advertising.
And for anybody listening who doesn't know what retargeting means, because sometimes we talk in marketing speak and versus, layman's terms, retargeting is, for example, when you're scrolling on Facebook and if you're me, find an ad for a brand that you love. And then the next thing you know, you pop over to Instagram and holy cow, there it is again. That's retargeting. So if you click on something or react to something or stop, your thumb stops scrolling and you look at an ad, that's what retargeting is it recognizes that you interacted with the ad, so it wants to serve you up another ad. And retargeting can be very, very effective. But, to Brad's point, there's a lot of strategy and many tactics that go into advertising correctly. So, I think we probably have given people a lot to, explode their heads today. So we probably should wrap this segment up. But, I think the key thing I would say to take away from this would be work with a professional. Don't try and do it on your own. You're going to waste money doing that. Don't do it unless you are willing to do it for a long term and you're willing to, take some risk and invest in getting all of every little last variable dialed in. And then, before you even think about whether or not advertising makes sense for your firm, you got to make sure that your messaging is correct on your website and the rest of your web presence. Would you have any final thoughts there, Brad?
No, I, that's exactly what we're saying. And, having, all your processes in place. Even when the ad is successful and, you do collect that information, then what are you going to do? You have to have, it's like a comprehensive kind of solution for it to be effective. Otherwise, you will waste money, and, we don't want to see that. So, definitely. If it's something that you're interested in, have a conversation. Let's discuss this. And, we want to see success in 2025.
Yeah. All right. Well, happy holidays, everyone. And I think this wraps it up for today. So thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you next time.
Take care.